Welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series, novels, and film. For this episode, Nicolas Cage takes us for a measure on a history trip at his leisure that may even be a pleasure. That's right, we're talking National Treasure. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Stephen Ford, joined as always by Andrew Knuckles.
Hello.
And Joel Killingsworth.
Hello.
And that's right, we're going to be talking us a little Nicolas Cage and some National Treasure.
And
I almost said
Nicolas
Treasure Planet.
Cage.
But before we dive into some Nicolas Cage-centric discussion, we're going to have a Nicolas Cage-centric discussion because he is the star of this show. So, for our intro topic, we're going to be talking about our favorite Nicolas Cage movies that are not National Treasure. Which is...
Otherwise, all of us would just be saying National
Treasure. Yeah, it was a bit
Treasure,
awkward because, as we've discovered by going through his whole filmography, National Treasure is, in fact, the best thing he's ever done.
He's in a lot of movies.
He's in a lot of things, yeah.
Most of them are not good.
Not particularly, no. So I am going to start this off by giving it to a thief, someone who stole my choice.
All right.
Joel?
Yep. So I'm bringing, for your consideration, the film titled Next. This is a 2007 release where Nicolas Cage plays, and I'm going to read verbatim the IMDb synopsis here because basically that's all there is to it. It says, a Las Vegas magician who can see into the future is pursued by FBI agents seeking to use his abilities to prevent a nuclear terrorist attack. That is the whole movie.
I love how the plot is government relies on magic.
Yeah. But the way that his abilities work as portrayed in the film, it's less a viewing of the future as it is a living through the future and essentially having an infinite number of retries.
Right. Just having to experience it and press rewind, experience.
And so you never know whether you're in a vision or in reality, because as far as he experiences them, they're the same thing.
Yeah. And I like those kind of films that always leave you guessing whether you're actually in reality or not. Because it does give it a little bit more of a suspense. Yeah. Because like when something bad happens, you're like, oh no, did that actually happen? I don't know.
Yeah. And also the visual representation of his ability playing out is also pretty good for 2007. And I don't think it had the biggest budget, but you do get a lot of majestic Nicolas Cage face as he's flowing through time.
And there's this one part where he's trying to get in good with this girl at a bar, right? Or it may, I don't know, it's like a diner or something. And so he goes through just several tries in a row where like she ends up slapping him, or it's just terrible. It's not going his way. And so he just keeps trying and keeps trying. It's like 3 or 4 times until like he just gives up and goes away. Right. Like it's there's a lot of humor to be had from it. There's some spectacle to be had from it too. There's one part where he is trying to get to this guy. And so usually the way that the visions are visually depicted is it's just him living through it. Right. But in this one scene, the way they depicted it is they actually had like different versions of him as he's approaching this guy with a gun that are all getting shot and dying as the guy is shooting at him. But like the real, quote unquote, real one is the one that's stepping out of the path of the bullet each time until he makes it to the guy.
Right.
And so they did a lot of interesting things with depicting his ability different ways visually.
That sounds pretty cool. I've actually never seen the movie, so
it would probably, I mean, again, Joel's a thief. If I was push come to shove, choose something that's him that isn't National Treasure, it's my next go-to.
Okay.
Next is your next go-to.
Next.
Nailed it. On that note, I'm taking charge.
Sure, go ahead.
All right.
We'll go back in time.
We are actually, that's why I took it, because it's fun, right? Because that's 2007 and you were talking about the whole scene with the diner and him trying to hit on a woman. So you could almost put Con Air and this in the same timeline just because of the way the plot works. So I'm going with Con Air. So I am not going to read the IMDb synopsis because it's not quite as simple as that. But basically, Cage's character, Cameron Poe, is, highly decorated Army Ranger, according to this, a military man, comes home to Alabama. Hey! Didn't actually realize that for whatever reason. Thanks for that representation of Alabama, I guess. trying to talk with his wife Trisha, and gets into a fight at a bar and ends up killing someone accidentally. So he gets charged with involuntary manslaughter, goes to prison, and now it's the present day, and he's being paroled. The only problem is the bizarre choices that have been made here means that this person who was charged with involuntary manslaughter is now on a parole plane full of the most dangerous and violent criminals the penitentiary system has. So this is a really weird scale when we get into it. Like when you really get down into it, it doesn't make any sense. So basically, these criminals have all created a plan in order to hijack the plane and escape the country. So Nicolas Cage's character has to kind of play the game of, yeah, guys, I support you, I'm with you, but really, I just want to go home, and another country isn't home. So I need a way to sabotage this without them being savvy to it and still being my friends, so they don't, because they're all these horribly violent. I mean, one of the characters talks about wearing a girl's head on his head as he drove through 3 states. Like these are some messed up individuals, and he's like, I need to work with you, but I also really don't need to work with you. So you get some interesting bits. There's a bit of went through a little phase there in American cinema where we were really obsessed with tight action sequences on planes.
I mean, yeah, you had Air Force One.
There it is. Yep.
One of the best Harrison Ford films.
It's a really good film. Yeah. But that's not who we're talking about. We're talking about Nicolas Cage, and I have given my offering, so now it is on to Andrew.
Okay, so I am going all the way back to 1996, The Rock.
Back a year from mine.
Michael Bay's second film, which was so tinfoil hat.
Oh no.
Well, okay, hold on. I'll go over the synopsis first before I go into
this.
Okay, so the synopsis is a ex-military patriot basically absconds some neurogas missiles, short-range missiles, that he then takes over Alcatraz and holds the city of San Francisco hostage. And they have to bring in Nicolas Cage, Stanley Goodfellow, to he is an FBI neurogas warfare expert, basically, and they have to bring him in with a special SAS operative, which has been a prisoner of the U.S. government for some years now, who is played by our lovely Sean Connery, who we are so familiar with as being another SAS operative called James Bond. And they have to go over to Alcatraz and basically infiltrate it and subdue with a team of paramilitary guys, to stop them from holding San Francisco hostage. The movie itself is actually pretty fun.
Yeah.
It's a decent action flick, even for Michael Bay, which this was early in his career, so he has not learned a lot of the bad things that he learned in later.
He has not yet discovered Transformers.
Yes. But tinfoil hat time,
Yep.
The Rock is actually a James Bond movie with Sean Connery as playing James Bond.
That's the last time Sean Connery played James Bond?
Yes, this is correct. So there's a guy that has gone through and literally lined up every single line of dialogue and referenced it back to all of Sean Connery's James Bond films and the timelines of when they happened. And
like which mission was the failure that got him captured by the Americans, and then he's disavowed.
Oh, so
by the British.
Not just like the way he's talking, but the references to his own past.
There are specific lines of dialogue in The Rock that reference back to Sean Connery's character in the film.
Yeah, like incidents he was part of, and like how he was caught and stuff.
Yeah, and how it is now when you look at all the evidence, it is so compelling that there's no way it's not a James Bond film. And that is why it's my favorite Nicolas Cage movie, because it's not actually a Nicolas Cage film. It's actually a Sean Connery James Bond film at the end of the day. And I mean, the movie itself is still really good. Like you have the sweeping final climactic shot of Nicolas Cage with the two flares holding him up with the jets flying over before they blow up Alcatraz. And they're playing with the toxin gas, little globules or whatever, and they're trying not to break it while they're fighting and shooting at each other and stuff. It's still a good action flick, but it is a James Bond film. Fight me on that. I can find all the reference material if someone really wants to bring
if
it
we
up.
want to, we can leak that video.
Yeah, it's honestly a really fun video to watch because you're just watching it, you're like, there's no way, and then you're like, oh
Yeah, like we're going down the
this is-
rabbit hole.
this is actually happening.
Mhm.
Yep. So
So I like how we kind of picked it. It's like Nicolas Cage has these moments where he gets high points. So it's like 1996, 1997, 2006, 2007. Because now we are moving into the 2006, right?
2003.
No,
2004,
I thought it was
sorry.
2006. Okay, 2004. Theory ruined. It's not as strong. It doesn't hold up as well as Sean Connery is James Bond at all times. Moving forward into National Treasure. So Joel, you want to give us a little synopsis?
Okay, this one I'm not taking.
Sing us a little
IMDb.
ditty.
So, National Treasure, we start out with a family whose heritage is that they possess a secret passed down to them by one of the founding fathers of the nation, the last surviving signer of the Declaration of Independence, Lewis Carroll, and the secret is that there's this treasure greater than all other treasures that has been kept secret and protected over hundreds, perhaps thousands of years of human history by the group of people who eventually became what we know as the Freemasons.
Like Knights Templar, Crusades, all that kind of stuff.
Kind of secret society, kind of vibe there. And so this family has been searching for this treasure to be guardians of it. They're not like treasure hunting. They're trying to find it so that they can kind of take up the mantle of guardianship.
And make a little bit of money along the way.
But they in pursuing this wholeheartedly, the family has gotten a reputation as being kind of crackpots. Because they believe in this theory that nobody else, like they haven't managed to scrounge up enough evidence to support this secret that they have. And so we have the protagonist, Nicolas Cage, playing
Benjamin Franklin Gates.
This is definitely a U.S. history story. And
pseudo history.
sort of history. And we come with him as an adult, and he has gotten farther than his family has before him. He's found a benefactor who believes in him and is
powers of the internet,
going on this journey to find the treasure with him. And so he's got the resources. He's managed to solve the first clue, the one clue that they had been keeping in the family for all these generations, and he has solved this riddle, and it leads to another riddle. And that riddle leads to the Declaration of Independence, that there's a treasure map on the back of the Declaration of Independence. And at that point, we find out that his benefactor is actually a bad guy. And the bad guy is going to completely disregard the historical importance of the document, and he's just going to go steal it. So Nicolas Cage is going to steal it first. and hijinks ensue.
Yeah.
Yes. Very much so, yes. All right. Well, on that note, what was our, let's hear some scores.
So our composite score for National Treasure is a 7.5.
All right.
So fairly high.
Yeah.
There are definitely some technical things in there that we dinged it for, though interestingly not consistently around the board.
No, there's going to be some entertaining discussion.
We all found different things that we liked and didn't like. But for entertainment value, our composite score there, separate from kind of the technical analysis.
Right. So we're kind of trying to say, hey, maybe this technically isn't a great film, but there's a lot of people.
7.5 out of 10, still pretty good.
Still pretty good.
Well, and just for clarification, there are 4 pillars of rubric and critique that we use, which is spectacle, performance, score, and plot.
Yeah,
right. And then separate from that, because again, there are potential for some movies that are pretty bad, but maybe really entertaining. May still be worth a watch, even though just don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
So we have a separate entertainment score. Which again, it's a composite of the 3 of our impressions. And what is that, Joel?
That came out to an 8.3.
So it does certainly improved from an entertainment perspective versus the technical aspect.
Yeah. The movie itself is actually really fun. It's definitely my favorite Nicolas Cage movie.
We did establish that, yeah.
That is not named The Rock, but that's a James Bond film. We've already been there.
Doesn't count.
Doesn't really count. So there's something about this, like it picks up on, you know, some kind of Indiana Jones style things, but then it also hits on the heist and the MacGuffin scavenger hunt kind of like itch.
Yeah.
And it kind of fits it into this very small scale cast. There's only like 5 people that really actually have any talking lines in it. And it pairs it with a really good like cast, and
the chemistry is really high.
Yeah, the chemistry is really high between all the characters, and there's lots of good little like quips and one-liners. The only thing that really doesn't really do it for me is the climax of the film. It's just like the action sequences just never really were that interesting. Everything else around it was really interesting.
Yeah.
I would say that setting this in the backdrop of, again, it's pseudo history, but
it's adjacent.
But it's still very much a, hey kids, watch this really cool adventure, and by the way, history is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right. By association. Yeah. And so having that particular backdrop to it makes it unique and kind of elevates it, I think, in terms of being a work that is both enjoyable and maybe not educational per se.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of actual history in there in terms of, you know, who signed the Declaration. You know, like the Silence Do Good letters, like all these kinds of references. There's a lot of actual history in there. It's just there's also a lot of
fluff,
history adjacent.
Well, and the thing that I like, this is one of maybe the first film that really hit a lot on a lot of American history for not like the Revolutionary War, because pretty much a lot of I'll say the Patriot and other films, they hit on when, like, up to the point where the Declaration of Independence is signed.
Right.
And then, hey, everyone wins and, you know, we're America.
Well, everyone lives happily ever after.
Yeah. And this kind of touches on some of the stuff that happened around that specific period of time and a little bit after it and a little bit before it, where you don't really get a lot of those details, I guess, which, you know, I mean, like, again, history adjacent.
Yep.
It's going to be sensationalized at the nicest way possible to say it. But honestly, it was just a really fun film.
Yeah, I mean, I got to echo what Andrew said. When the movie is a heist movie, when it's got, you know, the mystery elements going and kind of the puzzle elements, it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
like it's really high tier for not being just a solely heist movie. It still handles it very well.
Yeah. The second it tries to turn into an action film.
No, actually, that's where I disagree. The small pieces of action.
There's a car chase in it.
There's a car chase. There's some foot chases. Those are all pretty good. It's when it tried to scale up to a larger scale action that it wasn't up to the task. But I think the small scale action interactions are overall pretty good.
Yeah.
And again, we get exposed to a lot of history and history adjacent. You know, actually, I don't know if, I think Andrew knows. I don't know if Joel knows or not. But I have a watch at home, and it's a 100-year-old watch that was given to like my great grandfather when he retired as a past master of a Freemason. And so it's one of those things where you're like, oh, now I pick it up and look at it like, you got a map in there?
Are there clues?
You want to take me somewhere? You know, a little gold.
Yeah.
But it is fun in the sense that you kind of get history in a more entertaining format where they actually cram in a ton of historical references.
Yeah. So speaking of historical references, I dropped the name of the character or the historical figure who supposedly gave this family the secret.
Yeah.
And then I got thinking about it and was like, I'm not sure that name is right.
No, it wasn't.
So it's not right. So just
Do you have the right name?
It was, I think. I'm really unsure at this point.
Well, you said Lewis Carroll. I was like, the author, Alice in Wonderland. I didn't want to like fall down the hole because at the same time
I was like, I knew his surname was Carroll, and I was grasping.
Yeah, well I was like, I don't know if I can actually dispute you.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I was like, the author.
Well, I watched the movie today, like earlier today, and I was like, yeah, that sounds fine.
That's close enough.
Yeah.
Well, someone will correct us later. I'll let it slide. Then, Joel's going to correct us. Well, now I'm going to make fun of him.
What's the name?
Well, there was a Charles Carroll who signed the Declaration of Independence, so maybe that was.
We'll go with that. It's close enough. That's amazing. Oh Lord. So I think that pretty well breaks it down.
As we head into the intermission, you don't need to be a Freemason to see the treasure trove of content tucked away in our Patreon. We have tiers for show notes, pre-show recordings, and even listen in live, all on patreon.com/spoilersintendedpodcast. You just have to follow the clues.
Alrighty, everyone, and welcome back. Hope you enjoyed a little intermission. We are now past the revolution, and it's all spoilers ahead.
That was a really weak tie-in to National Treasure.
Don't you judge me.
I always judge
I mean, we could be in the vault, and it could be all the balloons ahead.
He at least knows who Lewis Carroll is. So.
No, you said it, and I seriously, I was just like, that's an author. I hope that's also the guy's name because that's hilarious. I won't challenge it. So we earlier we gave our comprehensive score of 7.5.
Yeah.
So now it's time to break it down a little. Our first category is spectacle. So this is kind of the wow of the movie. How did it hit?
Yeah, like how did it look? How did the action
effects,
set pieces work? CGI, anything
cinematography.
Like that. Cinematography.
Yeah, that's a big factor, especially for this one. I think that's going to be a big factor. And I'm going to hand it off to Joel.
Yeah.
Okay. So I gave Spectacle an 8 out of 10.
All right, that's a solid, respectable start.
And that for the most part, the action sequences were quite engaging.
Yeah, when they were small scale.
Particularly the car chase, kind of right after the first main heist sequence. And they're, the bad guys grab up the female lead who at that
Abigail
point
Chase.
in time.
And that is her name.
It's in a chase. Yep, that's happening. Anyway, they grab her up because they think that she has the Declaration of Independence.
Well, you think
which we do at the time too. But our protagonist was 2 steps ahead. But anyway, they give chase anyway because obviously there's a person in danger, and so they're just trying to save her.
it's the it's the girl.
It is the girl, but
they also need to chase to make him think that's the Declaration.
So anyway, I was framing it completely differently.
Oh no, how are you framing it?
There was a person in danger.
Yeah, he's doing
their value as a human being.
He's doing the right thing.
Their value as a human being was being violated because they were not being respected.
She's also taken.
It's not because she's a pretty girl and the love interest of Ben.
She wasn't the love interest yet.
There was already some.
There was a little bit of chemistry.
He's getting flirty.
Okay, we're completely off the rails.
No, we're in plot now.
But yeah, but in addition to the action sequences generally hitting pretty well, that feeling of mystery and adventure of what's the next clue. Well, let's find the next clue. Let's figure out the next riddle was really well supported throughout the course of the film and just kind of kept it going.
It kept the energy up.
Yeah.
Good portion of the time. So I gave it a 7. Mostly just because I knocked it for the final action set piece of them in this bottomless pit under New York.
Yes, it was in New York.
It's in New York.
Yeah.
And that's more in plot kind of stuff, but just the actual effects didn't look that good.
No.
However, I will say I did really enjoy the large open sweeping shots of Washington D.C. And especially whenever they're up in the Arctic, and a couple of the other just scenes that they did that were just like really wide, and they give you a good the score really helped with this kind of sell. It sounds so silly, but America.
It's a very patriotic film.
It's a very patriotic film, but the weird,
subtly patriotic.
Yeah. So the weird thing is like normally whenever I watch films like I'll say like The Patriot or just any other like film based in America, kind of about America, it feels more like a propaganda film than it does like an actual movie. Right. And this one doesn't really feel like that.
Well, I think that from what you're seeing, like The Patriot, I think is a good reference because a lot of those type of hyper patriotic movies are militarily grounded.
Yeah.
Whereas this is more kind of a celebration of the civilians who founded the nation,
who
more so
nation,
than a military action.
That's a good point. I didn't think about it. From
I think that helps it slide past because this is ultimately it's a civilian act is what it really amounted to.
Yeah,
enforced with a military act, but either way.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this too, and this is just a good checkpoint for the directors that did this film. Is this was during the time of shaky cam, and they did not utilize shaky cam as this
peak shaky cam.
Thank you so much.
That's worth a point at least.
I actually probably should have given it an 8 for that.
Well, you know what else we should have given more points for? Sean Bean made it through an entire movie without dying.
I'm pretty sure he dies in the second one.
I don't remember the second one.
We're not going to review the second one.
No one's going to watch it.
It's just this movie.
I did note at the end of the film, I was like, wow, he didn't die.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure someone's done the statistics on that, and he doesn't actually die that frequent. It's just the memorable characters are the ones that die.
Well, because all of the big films that he's been in,
or series,
or series or whatever. Yeah, I mean, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings,
Patriot Games.
Those
all immediately jumped. I actually have a hard time passing
GoldenEye.
Yeah, okay, yeah, GoldenEye is a good one. Anyway, so moving to me.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you gave it a 7. You should have given an extra point for no shaky cam. All right.
I should have.
I'm there for you. I got him with an 8. So I like the movie just because ultimately it's very grounded, right? Like what they do is until the end, almost entirely plausible.
Yeah, like it feels very believable.
It does. And now,
as silly as that,
we'll get into some of the plot issues with maybe some of the heist, and there's little things that are papered over, but no one does any kind of Herculean, Marvel style.
Right. Yeah. Their physical accomplishments are not outrageous.
No, and honestly, a lot of the mental stuff is kind of
it's within the realm of possibility for someone that has dedicated pretty much their entire life to understanding the history.
Right. Well, and remind me, I'll come back to that in the plot. For me, maybe a little bit of a knock. The Charlotte, the action that happens in the Charlotte maybe isn't great. I could probably go down a rabbit hole about how long gunpowder is actually good for.
A very long time.
And especially in the dryness that is the Arctic, or it is Arctic, right?
It's Arctic, yeah.
Kind of by default, that's a dry area.
Because the way they make it out is they talk about there being an Inuit encampment not too far away.
Yeah, which we'll get into the plot because that helps them with some other stuff. But actually, like the actual can you survive this?
The smuggler hold thing is a little.
It's a little. We're in plot, but it feels
especially
implausible.
For such an old ship that's been there. Anyway,
that's plot. But the spectacle of it is fine. It's not great.
It's okay.
The car chase scene is a much better spectacle. It's a much more grounded. And I especially really like the bits where they're split up and they have kind of the action sequences of the individuals hiding and trying to evade, better trained people. They're more fit, more capable. And like the little bit like in the market where she gets behind the counter and has because I think for that, like there's a lot of tension there. And it's maybe not, big, high flying spectacle, but for the scale it's at, it's really, really well executed.
Well, and you know that if Abigail gets caught, 1, she has a declaration, but then 2, like she is no match to escape this guy if he gets his hands on her.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We've already seen that demonstrated essentially. So, I mean, for the most part, and you kind of hit on it, this is very much so. And spectacle. I don't want to bring up Marvel. You can't bring Star Wars into this because it's just not possible. But I don't want to bring up Marvel. But for the most part, the film is just the East Coast. You go from DC to Boston, and that's it. That's the full scope. That is a day's drive at best, depending on traffic.
Yeah.
And for that, what we get some really great shots of, like you said, DC, Independence Hall in Philadelphia, and just some other small pieces of history that maybe, again, we kind of referenced it prior to the intermission, where it's kind of a tour of history that, in a way, that a lot of people aren't really exposed to.
Yeah.
And I think they do a really good job of presenting kind of because, there's the joke, right? Well, what's old in America? Oh, 100 years. Well, what's old in Europe? Oh,
a couple thousand.
500, 1,000. So they do a good job of kind of presenting some of the grandeur of the history that is involved.
Well, and kind of what, the founding fathers went through to create a country, essentially. And like he says in the film, to high treason, because that's what it was.
Well, or even, small moments. And it's not really a plot moment. I think it's really more a spectacle moment where they have a moment where he pauses because they have the Declaration in Independence
that was
Hall.
really cool.
And he's like, he pauses and they're all like, well, what? The last time this document was in this room, it was being signed. It's kind of one of those moments where it really kind of hits. I mean, 8, that's respectable spectacle.
Yeah.
So, anyways, moving forward.
On to the performance.
Do we start high and go low? Do we go low?
Well, he already started,
high?
So we have to start.
Oh, yeah, we have to start. All right, well,
but yeah, so
I'll give it to Andrew.
Performance is the performance of the actors, generally the lines that they are given, some of the writing.
Chemistry.
It's
it's really chemistry. If the writing's bad, it's not necessarily the actor's
could
fault.
be plot, yeah. But, it's the chemistry between everyone. And I gave it a 10.
Nicolas Cage.
It's okay. It's so funny because Nicolas Cage he's actually a pretty good actor. He's done some serious roles that he actually has some decent drama in, and he has a pretty good range. It's just he's just in a lot of films. Most of them are really bad, and this one I'm not going to say his individual performance was perfect.
Well, a 10, it can't get better.
No. But the chemistry that he has with everyone in the cast was so phenomenal, where it's very rare that you get these films where everyone just clicks, where he has a really good rapport with Abigail and Riley, and they also can fire back at him. And especially because it's kind of one of those things where you get two nerds that are interested in the same subject in the same room.
Yeah.
And they can both kind of just fire away at each other with just different little tidbits of information while also insulting the other person at the same time. It's very realistic, at least to me. I'm a big nerd about a lot of stuff. And if you can get someone on that same level, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep this rolling because I also gave performance a 10.
Could not have been better. There was literally no way to improve.
Do you know why?
You hear the scorn in my voice.
No, I know. I don't care. I don't care. It doesn't matter. We got Sean Bean being a pretty good villain.
Yeah, he's always a good villain.
Kind of an implacable foe.
Well,
right?
And the thing too I like about his character specifically is he's not necessarily an evil guy. He's
very driven on this goal.
He's like, hey, this is a lot of money. I'm just going to do whatever it takes.
I'm going to do it. Yeah,
but he's not going to just kill you to kill you. If he
Well, it's also interesting the links that they went to not have any direct. No one at any point said, "I'm going to kill you."
Yeah.
Right. Even when he gave the orders to his men after, as they were going to go down into the final pit, right? And he turns to his men and is like, "You two stay here, and if anyone comes out of here without me." The natural conclusion to that sentence is you shoot them. Yeah. Right. But he says, use your imagination.
Yep.
Right. This is a kid's movie and we're not going to be explicit about the violence.
This is Disney. This is very much a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But for me, Bean, great villain, pretty good foe, handles that well. And he and Cage play off each other pretty well from the start and also throughout kind of the sparring.
Well, it's like that I can't bluff. We've played poker together.
Yes, those little interactions are great. But you're already touching on it with the chemistry. But I think just the way that the core 4 characters, so Cage, Kruger, Bartha, and Voight,
Mm-hmm.
all are able to play off each other, not just, and it does not, when you have Cage, Kruger, and Bartha together,
Yeah.
and you remove Cage, it doesn't collapse.
No, yeah,
The other
they
two
still
still
have...
handle it very well with each other.
Mhm.
Yeah. And even moments when, Riley, Bartha, is on his own, he handles himself
Mhm.
well and carries it forward. And same for the other characters. So like when he's out of the scene and you don't have that foil to play off, and it's just Cage and Kruger interacting, you could have the nerd alpha off,
Mhm.
but they also have good chemistry with other types of interaction. And I
Yeah.
think that is what really sold it to me, because at the end of the day, we all know this wasn't, this isn't Schindler's List. This wasn't going to be high drama, but for what they had in front of them, I think they really went above the potential of the material.
Yeah, like what you would expect out of essentially a mid-tier fair adventure film.
Yeah, I mean, this is essentially a movie based around a conspiracy theory. This should be C tier at its highest, and I think the people involved on screen really brought it up a long ways from where it could have been.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So, Joel, on that note,
I'm
Bring us down.
gonna bring it back down.
calm down. Let's pull the patriotism down a little bit.
I gave it a 7 on performance. It's still pretty good,
yeah.
right? Like, I mean, I thought that there were a lot of points that were really worth celebrating in the performance, and it mostly had to do with the on-screen chemistry, like you were talking about.
Mhm.
The quips were amazing. You talked about that moment where Nicolas Cage is just dumbstruck in awe of having brought the Declaration of Independence back to
Independence Hall.
Yeah.
Independence Hall, and like this is the first time since it was signed that it's been back. He's just standing there in awe of this, and Riley's just like, "You're stupid. We don't have any time. Can we please move on here?" Like,
you almost actually kind of wonder, because a lot of films you can hear behind the scenes, oh, that was ad lib. I almost do wonder if Cage was like so set in being who he was that he had an off script where he was like, wait, and like the other people are like breaking character, like what, like what's going on,
Mhm.
and like it's literally Riley's actually being like, dude, you're wasting film.
Yeah. But there were a lot of little moments like that. So like all of that was great. My biggest complaint is that there's this kind of side plot between Nicolas Cage and his character's father, where his father has felt like he has wasted his life. He spent 20 years hunting for this treasure, gotten nowhere. He no longer thinks that it's real. He thinks that he's wasted his life, and his son is now throwing his life away all for a sham. And so that has not only affected the father's identity as a member of this family, because like that's kind of their family's whole deal.
Their shtick.
Yeah. And so it definitely, because we get hints that definitely damaged his father's relationship with the grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
But we also see that it's damaged the father's relationship with the son. And so there's an estrangement there because the father has given up on this dream. And so at the end of the climax, when they find treasure, and the father kind of has this turning point of, no, you were right, and I'm so glad that you were right. That scene just felt really kind of skimmed through, and there wasn't any sort of pathos or drama brought to this point, which was the conclusion of the father's arc and the resolution of the tension between this really important father-son relationship.
Yeah.
And so
that's fair.
I can definitely understand that.
But I can't agree with it.
Well, no, it's not even that I don't agree with it, because it does feel a little rushed. But I think some of the earlier scenes, whenever they go to his house and they're like, before he realizes that it's the Declaration of Independence is what they have, you can tell that he's kind of like, you can definitely tell that he's interested in what they're doing.
He can't keep that curiosity down.
Yeah, because he
keeps wanting
spent a lot of time
to put his nose in and say, well, you need a reagent. And all this.
Yeah. He spent a lot of time of his life, obviously trying to follow this, and then he realized his limitations, or just that he felt like it was a dead end, and then obviously in the process of that he estranged his son, his grandparent, his
His
father.
father,
Sorry,
yeah.
excuse me.
Mhm.
And then I'm assuming his wife, which is why she's not there. And so you do have those little tidbits here and there of him kind of accepting that what his son is involved in is actually much larger than what he expected it to be.
Mhm.
Right. Well, and you get a little bit of that too with when he first goes to the house. You have the initial interaction between them. His dad, I found the Charlotte, and the spark goes off
Yep.
for his dad. Like the Charlotte, it was a ship. Like, oh, you solved one of the puzzles I couldn't.
Mhm.
You were there, like you touched it, and then he says, "Well, so you found? Well, no, I didn't find it." And then he reverts back to
Yeah,
form.
it was just another
It's
clue.
just another, endless chase, yada yada yada. And so I really appreciate that part of it.
Mhm.
And I can see kind of what you're saying, and it may be that I just kind of glossed past it because the prior action sequences were a big letdown, and then you hit this point. Oh, cool! We get a little bit of payoff of something. Well,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can see it. I don't think it's worth,
and that
3
that
points
could make
of
it like a 9 or an
maybe a
8.
9.
Yeah.
Right, but like in order to get
Joel's
order-
like, we have standards.
in order to get above an 8, like you've got to be outstanding.
This was pretty
It
outstanding.
was pretty outstanding.
It was standing out.
Well, again, especially looking back at the end of the day, the baseline material that was in front of them of we're doing a conspiracy theory where you're stealing the Declaration of Independence ahead of someone else so they won't steal it. Like when you boil the plot down, like you were reading the synopsis for Next, they're pretty stupid.
Yeah.
And I think they really, really elevate that. So that's
Yeah,
going to
fair.
be my
Mhm.
justification just
Yeah.
going forward. It's
Okay.
not just that Nicolas Cage is hilarious. Whatever.
So we're moving on to the score of the score.
I'm going to score that score. So this is the music and maybe its emotional impact. How well does it work with the movie? Does it fight the movie, etc.? Does it sell the message? So Joel, you went last. So we're going to give it to you first.
All right, fantastic. I'm going
Does
to
it
drag
go?
it down again. We're going
Golly.
to go with a 6. 6 out of 10.
Ooh.
I felt that okay, so there was not any point. This is above a 5, right? There was not any
Better than average.
was not any point at which the score was actively fighting against the emotional tone of the scene.
True.
Right.
Mhm.
However, the composition was really felt dated, and to be honest, it reminded me of like procedural cop shows from the late 90s and early 2000s. It was just exactly that style
It had a little bit of that.
No,
Yeah.
it was.
of musical composition,
Yeah.
and it just like as soon as I noticed that, I couldn't stop noticing that, and it was just really annoying.
So one of the big things that I kind of pointed out too with that is whenever they're in the midst of figuring out the next clue,
Mhm.
it has this kind of like little like quick high tones that are like
Yeah.
Little puzzle music. Yeah.
and it's just like wow, this is literally just NCIS.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's whenever they're doing something sciencey. That's
Yep.
that's that music.
Yeah, that's
They're hacking with everyone's on the same keyboard
Yep.
typing.
It goes faster with more fingers.
No, God.
Good note though, the actual main theme of the movie is actually quite good. With like the big American style like trumpets and horns.
What'd you end up giving it?
I give it a 7.
Mhm.
I mean, like mostly for the same kind of stuff. It was a relatively generic for the time kind of thing, especially whenever you look at 2003, so 1 year before this, and you have Pirates of the Caribbean, which has one of the most fantastic
Such a good score.
Oh, yeah.
scores like that Disney has ever done.
It's that's a really harsh comparison.
Well, no, but I mean, like,
that's rarefied air now.
But that was done produced around the same time period.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, it's a fair comparison. It's just harsh.
Yeah, like so there are some things that they clearly missed out on.
Yeah.
But I also too just like a lot of the tone, like the action scenes is what really took it out of me. Like the actual music for action set pieces just didn't really do anything. It was like more like less than generic. If that makes sense.
It just didn't add much.
Yeah, it didn't add anything to it. But I do like the actual main theme. I really liked a lot.
Yeah. So I also gave it a 7, and my justification for a little better than average is because I'm fitting in with most of y'all's points here. It had its moments, but there are moments where either it just was too generic or it was maybe too understated, and you just didn't get the full impact you could have gotten if the music had kind of built into the scene.
Yeah.
But listening through it again today, just the soundtrack or whatnot, I did notice. So when you listen to Ben's main theme, and then when you hit the main theme for the Declaration of Independence, yes, the document has its own theme.
Yep, it does.
It is weaved in with Ben's theme.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really great play just for how incredibly, inextricably tied together his family is to this piece of history and how much respect he has for it. I mean, yes, he steals it, but he steals it to someone else from stealing it. And he also has an entire clean room setup that, whatever technical jargon they throw out is enough for
Abigail
to go, oh, as in you're not complete moron.
Yeah.
Well, there may have been some thought ahead of this.
Well, and that's a paramount to his character, and that we're kind of moving into plot here. But just because he knows that that Ian is, if he gets his hands on it, he is going to just brutalize this document.
He's not going to treat it with respect.
Yeah, he's not going to treat it with respect. And obviously, Ben's motivation is never to actually do any harm, one, to America, but then two, to the Declaration of Independence, which he holds so incredibly dear, especially because one, of his family, but then two, it's like this is what he's kind of like spent most of his life, kind of like searching for. Yeah.
Well, on those notes, we're just going to go ahead and move right into the plot. And Andrew, you were kind of going, so I'm going to let you keep going.
I give it a 6. It's pretty, there's not even leaps in logic of whenever they're trying to figure out, the next clue. It's really the final place where they find the treasure room and like the big shaft of how they got all these antiquities and gold and everything like that into this chamber.
Yeah, buried under New York City
is just so absurdly implausible that there is not one person that had ever built any infrastructure in the entire city.
They did. There was a line of dialogue about that.
Where that it was under a graveyard.
Yeah.
But then even then, like they run, like whenever they're building like subways and all these other kind of infrastructures, like they do geological surveys to see how deep and how well these.
Hold on now. One of the big premises here, and it's referenced with the FBI, the agent in charge, who is a Freemason, is the fact that the Freemasons as an organization still have enough power and pull that they could potentially be influencing this, right? Like this FBI agent got put in charge of this. So for all we know, Port Authority in New York is just lousy with Freemasons, and it's just, we just have never put infrastructure across this block.
Yeah.
That's still, for this kind of conspiracy theory, that kind of control is reasonable.
And that's kind of my other big knock, was the fact that all the people that built this massive chamber and everything like that, like you're telling me that there is not one person in history that hasn't told someone else what it was?
Well, they did. That's how this whole story got started.
Was the one person in history who was not Lewis Carroll.
Well, no, but like all the workers and all that other, like everyone that like normal people that worked on this.
I mean, it's a bottomless pit, Andrew. We could take the Atlantis approach. There's just bones down there. You don't know. No, I mean that's always a fair argument of, we built this massive complex. Well, how can we possibly not have people, leak or snitch or whatever?
That's what you do.
Well, that, or they think they're building it for something else.
Entirely possible, and then they somehow sneak in.
Yeah, or you just have really committed group.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I mean, there's maybe a little implication in that because the Knights Templar don't really have the most shining of reputations when you go back and you look at the actual Crusades.
Yeah.
And they kind of gloss over that by saying, well, this group splintered off from them and took the treasure across the ocean.
Mhm.
So the implication here is this is like, the most
the good guys.
dedicated of the dedicated. Yeah.
No. You're completely glossing over the one line of dialogue that explains all of it.
Oh Lord. Okay.
Riley's like, it's exactly the same way they built the pyramid.
Oh yes.
Aliens.
The aliens built them.
You know what? Why not?
But yeah, I mean, like other than that, like it didn't like. I know Joel has some plot points on the actual heist of the Declaration of Independence. That didn't really bother me at all.
Nah.
It was kind of one of those things where it felt more of like a motif of a heist film than an actual heist film where you need to have logic, like specific logic of like how you were going to do.
I mean, I would argue, and this is like I think that if you're going to do something, you can do something with less detail because it's just not needed.
Mm-hmm.
But like you still need to do it as quality as you can, regardless of the application.
Okay.
Like I take the same look at children's movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can make perhaps a simpler story for a child, but it still needs to be a real story. If you just water it down and make it dumb, then it's trash. It's not worth anything.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't buy it's not supposed to be the gold standard thing. So there's no standard.
Okay. I mean, that's
okay,
what are your
Give us some score.
Okay, so my score on plot is a 6.
Okay, that's in line with Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, and so like we're not fundamentally disagreeing on. I mean, this is we're getting the same result through different paths here again, but the kinds of things that I had a problem with the heist on had to do with just it felt like shortcutted details, right? Like they started out with the whole, I'm going to give her this button that I know that she's been looking for, so I know she'll accept it because it's the one thing out of her collection that she's missing, and I'm going to coat that with this ink, this invisible ink, right? That's great. That's fine. It makes a lot of sense. It's well thought out. They give a lot of character motivation for why she would not refuse this and would handle it
to him. Well, normally I would have to reject it, but I just couldn't.
Yeah, because I really want
like he hit the tone. Like this is the kind of thing. Like he knows what she wants.
And so getting the fingerprints off of the wine glass or the champagne flute that played really well. But the problem is that wasn't the only thing he needed. He needed the fingerprint to get past the biometric scanner, and then he needed her password. Mm-hmm. And so he goes to the keyboard and he's like, okay, so what buttons did she hit? If she had hit the shift key even once, he is out of luck.
Yeah, no. It's really interesting to see the U.S. government at work where it's like, I need your thumbprint to get in the elevator, but when you get down here, like 10 letters will do. No numbers, no special characters.
Yeah. Well, hold on. I'm gonna interject here. This is 2004.
Yeah, there's a lot of technology that is not nearly there.
Technology is still kind of on the way up for like the internet and everything. So there's a lot more analog stuff, and so social engineering wasn't as big of a thing as it is now. Where like here, I go and sign up for just a random t-shirt website and I have to put in 10 15 characters with special characters and capitals. Like those standards were not commonplace back then. So someone, now granted, government agency,
the standards didn't exist back then. So
like the standards didn't exist.
Well, I mean, as far as standards is concerned, there's blatant tailgating at the beginning there too, like right after they've done the thing with the laser to get the heat sensor to go off, right? And so like that was actually pretty good. Like I liked that part of it. Like we're going to force the document into this less secure area so we can gain access to it. So that was great. But then like she, as the doctor in charge of preservation of this particular document, she has been summoned to come inspect and just see what's going on. And so she comes in and she does her password, which registers with the system that she has passed through this door. And the other doctor that's walking with her just passes right in with her. So like there is no security standard there whatsoever. Like there's no scanning of key cards. There's nothing.
I mean, it is a government agency. Fun, right? You like back up into that era, right? So I'm in college at that point, 2004. I don't know if you were.
No, I was still in high school.
Okay. So at Auburn, and I don't know what the standard was when you were there, but your student ID number was your social security number.
Yep.
And Auburn did not protect that data in any way, shape, or form. And it was a huge scandal like 2010, 2011, because like it was just, you know, a database that's just sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just student names and their social security numbers. And that was just kind of security attitudes back then.
Yeah,
It
like it just didn't exist.
No
because,
one expected that kind of attack, really, or for that data to really be that valuable.
Yeah,
and then surprise, turns out your identity is
pretty important. Yeah. So what else?
So the other, and this is the biggest one yet, and that is that so the things that are going on is that they've got the gala that's happening upstairs, right?
Mhm.
And so it's timed that way specifically so that the guards have a lot to distract them. That's
a lot going on.
Yeah, that's great. They have specifically engineered a situation where the document that they're trying to get will be placed in the least secure location it has ever held. That's fine. They did it in a way that made sense.
Yep.
They get in there with some, you know, wibbly. We already talked about that. But when he finally gets to the room, all of the texts that Dr. Chase has said, these are the steps I want performed on the document, and then leaves, are not there. The document is in the room by itself.
Whoa, hold on. I'm going to stop you right there. That might be the most realistic depiction of government work. Is it after 5? Yeah, I'm going home.
So, but like
that is true.
But
honestly,
what they said, their setup was, it is only in this room while it's being worked on.
But you got the gala going on. Everyone's distracted. Honestly, I'll let
the techs aren't going to the gala either way.
No, they're going home because they're government workers. Like it's funny because, like, from my perspective, is it like the most? You know, I love heist movies.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the most well developed heist? No. But for the most part, everything they do, it feels fairly earned, right? In terms of, well, how are they getting the footage to be able to hide his presence? Well, like you
see him do that.
You see physical hacking, which is
that's fair.
Something that, especially in modern TV shows, movies, we don't really get much of, where, you know, one of the big keys to how do you hack a system is location.
Mm-hmm.
By being in a specific place, you gain access that you wouldn't normally get from a home computer. Whereas most modern things, they just smash the keyboard really fast and say I'm in, and that just means they hack this. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, well, and you couldn't make a film like this with the same kind of plot points that they use anymore, because a lot of these places are now all digital for their security systems and everything. It's not analog anymore, where you can't just tap in with a little. It's not war games where you can literally take your phone and then listen to the modem signal of, you know, whatever.
Still one of the best hacking movies ever made.
Yeah,
mostly because it's all realistic. Anyways, I'm gonna jump in and give a score.
Yeah.
So y'all gave it 6s. Shame. I gave it an 8. So,
why did you give it an 8?
Well, so this is one of those things where, you know, overall the plot's pretty tight. Like, we don't have any crazy leaps. We don't have any crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I can, you know, and especially from a you know, pandemic perspective of, oh yeah, sure, she got the coin, and of course she's going to fondle it, which is not what a preservation historical person would do with something that is just by definition 200 plus years old.
Yeah.
And then she's like, never going to wash her hands.
Not going to wash her hands.
So that one, it's a little questionable.
All the way from going to the gala, where she's more than likely going to take a shower.
No, the gala's fine, because the fingerprint, he put something on the glass, would be how I'd interpret it. It's not playing off the invisible ink. It's him specifically presenting her this glass that he has had the chance while he got the champagne.
Oh yeah, because he put the invisible ink on so he could see where she typed. Yeah, makes sense.
But it is still a bit of a leap to say, well, maybe it's just really strong invisible ink, and she did wash her hands, you know, before. But it's a very tight timing window to be able to say, okay, cool, you know, she's received the package, and now we've triggered the alert on the document, and now it's going down into the vault, and now she has to go, and she has no, you know, it's just rush. We have a problem. She has no chance to wash her hands or whatever.
Yeah.
So I can let that one kind of slide. I think for me, we're going to ignore the massive semi-fight / scramble over 200-year-old wood supported by rope that is also 200, or at least as far as I know, the Freemasons aren't climbing down and sort of restoring this, because if they are, they're doing a terrible job. That is precipitated by, you know, one of the henchmen stepping through a plank, and it shatters, and he falls the whole way through multiple And then everyone else like drops, half a story and lands on solid footing, and it doesn't, because they were important to the plot and the henchman was not. We let that one slide.
You needed to have an example of
the risks.
The danger.
Yeah. But plot-wise, that's weak. Any of this, like, we're going to investigate this, old historical site and all of the mechanical gears that are powered by wooden pulleys and ropes. Whenever that's always just kind of, okay, yeah, we'll let that one slide.
We just have to assume that it was a very dry climate there.
It is New York.
It is not dry. That's why
the port
the
city.
Joke.
Yeah. But like, so it's weird too, because there are all these really small things that I really, really liked that they did in the movie. So we'll hit on Stephen pet peeve number 1. When he first gets the pipe in the Charlotte, and he's going to reveal the lettering on the stem, and he cuts his finger for the blood to smear it on there.
Don't do it on your thumb, man.
Well, but you know what? Every other movie in Hollywood, he would have ran that thing right across his paw.
That is very true.
And he didn't. And I was like, you know what? All right, we're gonna appreciate this for what, because like straight up, one of our cats scratched me in a slightly inconvenient place on my paw, and not a very deep scratch, not that big a deal. Man, it has been the biggest pain for the last week. So, like, any of these actors who are just, oh, you just scratch. I think, stop. Hollywood, stop doing that. So I'll appreciate them for that. Another small thing that I really, really liked was because I think they did a good job of kind of developing the relationship between Abigail and Ben.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's a little weird. Her transition is a little strange, but I think the way that they showed it visually was really, really good. So you have the scene where they're in the van after they've escaped Ian. They can't go back to his place because it's, the FBI's there now.
FBI's going to be there
because he had to use his credit card.
Which is another thing that I'll get to. I got to talk positive here. Y'all been talking negatives. And, she keeps interrupting. Like, look, if I let you hold the Declaration, will you be quiet? Perfect. Awesome. Wonderful. So, of course, now she has everything she wants and the means to escape. So, big point number 1, we get the camera looks of her looking around saying, can I make this run? Number 2, we get the focus on her feet and she is taking off her high heels for running. So, we're being super practical about what is necessary to actually run away. And also we get this really great thing that's going to show up a little later where it's, well, what is she doing? What is she actively doing with her physical self, her feet? She's escaping, right? That's her goal. And then, of course, he catches her. It doesn't happen. Well, then we go forward a little later where, hey, this conspiracy is becoming more and more plausible in her world. And they're at the store because they need a change of clothes. And they're kind of, just talking with each other. They're kind of having, the discussion of their past and this kind of thing. And there is a moment where, they're discussing these things and she tells him, oh, well, people don't talk like that. And he goes, yeah, but they think like that. They just don't want to they don't want to reveal that to other people. And she leans in towards him. And again, they put the camera down towards her feet. And it's not what her feet are doing to run away. It's what are her feet doing to move towards him. I think that was actually a really great little piece of visual storytelling within the plot that lets you see like her shift in attitudes where it's not just kind of random out of nowhere. Oh, they kiss. Oh, they're in love. What?
Yeah.
You had a nice development.
Yeah, well,
so I'll give them points for that.
Well, I mean, even more than the development, like it's just from a interest perspective, they're a really great match, right? Because they have both devoted their lives to basically the same thing.
Yeah, and they have the same interests,
yeah,
etc.
And so like if it was not for the fundamental conflict that ultimately brought them together, then their casual meeting was likely to end up on friendly terms even quicker.
Right. Yeah. And now I'm trying to think of what my other bit was.
Credit card?
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. So one,
we take Visa.
Yeah. Well, best product placement, or one of the smoothest product placements done in movies, modern movies. Take note. It's plot relevant. Come on, people. Don't tell me that he's hiding behind the Audis just because you have to say the word Audi.
He's hiding behind the Audis over there.
Nobody says that. They say the car. It's a car. The black car at best. Anyways, so he doesn't go into the gift shop with any real plan other than, oh, she can't, like I've been suspicious. She's totally on to me. I can't be seen, right? And then he gets the store clerk, gets onto him because he's got the real Declaration of Independence. He's trying to hide it in his jacket, and she's like, "You trying to steal that?" And he's like, "Oh,
yeah,
no."
Yeah.
So we already have like a really great humor moment in this, but then we actually have the plot bit of when he has to pay for it, and he is desperately like, "Can I put enough cash together to not use my credit card and be on the freaking grid for this and just give myself away?" And he can't. Like he just has $32. We're headed towards
and he's
society.
out of options because if she decides that she's going to raise a stink, he doesn't get away.
Yeah, like she is now the biggest obstacle to this heist. Like all this high tech shenanigans, and like, dude, you didn't bring enough cash. Like you could be stopped here.
Yeah. Well, what's funny too is that more than likely, if he would have, because he's at a gala, like this is a special event, and he probably, if he would have approached her and be like, "Hey, I only have $32. I'd like to buy a replica of the Declaration of Independence. I know it's $35. Would you, spare me $3?"
Yeah, maybe.
But because he was already looking suspicious, like there's no recourse at that point.
Yeah.
Well, but what's also great here is when we get a little further, right, when we have the car chase scene and the real Declaration is safe because we have the switcheroo, right? He didn't go into that gift shop with the purpose of, I should get a duplicate to throw off the trail. He literally only did it to duck out. And it was once he became committed to the point of, I have to use my credit for this. It was like, in for a penny, in for a pound. If I'm going to have to do this, I'm going to get some value out. Like, he actually has really great logic of, I have to buy one, well, I'll buy two. And now at least I can sort of say, well, I have a duplicate maybe. I'm obfuscating my path. And then it actually pays off for him. So I really, really like the way those kind of small pieces kind of build up in and become relevant to the plot. And like, again, I already called it, like this really and truly at writing, at premise should be a C-tier movie. And it's interesting how these little pieces keep kind of stacking up, or at least for me, to making it really more.
Yeah. Again, like up to like, honestly, like there's very rarely a time where, like I don't actively seek out the film, but whenever someone's like, "Hey, let's watch National Geographic," like, heck yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Lauren and I put it on literally last night. Like it was like we're driving home. I was like, "Oh man, I need to watch that movie." And we put it on, we're watching, and she's sitting there. She's like, "This is really entertaining, more than I, just remember." It's like, yeah, this is always just a good movie.
It's just a fun movie to watch.
Yeah, which I talked a lot on plot. I don't know if y'all had anything more. I didn't want to just.
There was one final point that just kind of, this is going back to the negative.
Well, I was really positive, so go for it.
But rounding it out with the FBI agent being revealed in the last moment to be a Freemason himself and really sympathetic to Nicolas Cage's character's position and journey, just felt so unearned. You talked about everything feeling earned, like they did things and they took steps and regardless of like the little holes that you could poke in that, there was at least there was effort and there was payoff.
Right.
Whereas this felt like, well, this is a kids movie and we don't want any of the people we like to suffer consequences for the fact that they did illegal things. So we're just going to do this instead.
Well, no, but like you said, someone's got to go to prison.
Yeah,
and luckily they had the known whereabouts of where Ian was going to be.
And it was the kind of movie where all the bad guys end unhappily and all the good guys end happily. And so like that occurred, and I accept that. But
I don't agree.
It could have been a little earned.
No, I actually agree with you, because knowing that scene was coming up earlier when he's addressing the crowd at the gala, I was looking at his hands, and I'm, we could do like a deep dive, zoom in, enhance. But
I'm see if he had it on.
Almost positive he was not wearing a ring on.
Yeah,
the pink. There's like his pinky finger.
Yeah, it like so.
It's a miss.
It doesn't bother me, and I mean, I still gave it a 6 for plot, but I mean, it didn't really bother me that much. But I mean, I definitely agree too. Like it's definitely it's probably one of the only things in the film that don't really feel earned.
Yeah. I mean, all right, I got to get another positive in just because you're dinging me here.
We can talk about entertainment score now.
We can. Actually, I can put it into entertainment. But I'm going to let somebody else start it. No one's taking my
I gave
point.
entertainment an 8.
Yeah, that's solid.
I've like stated in other casts, a movie needs to be at least at an 8 or higher for me to rewatch it, or a series or whatever. or willfully rewatch it. I mean, I'll still watch other things that I don't like, but this is definitely one of those films where, like I said just a minute ago, like I'll watch it. If someone was like, "Hey, let's watch National Treasure," I'm like, "Heck yeah, let's go!" Like, I've seen it a handful of times now. It's always fun.
Yeah,
like it's, I'm not a big U.S. history buff, especially not the Revolutionary War. And I always find a lot of, I understand it's history adjacent, but it's just fun thinking about some of that kind of like conspiracy stuff with like all the founding fathers and whatnot. It's always fun.
Well, especially once you start throwing around terms like Freemasons and Knights Templar, you open up all kinds of
You got the Illuminati symbols and all,
Joel?
Well, I've been pretty critical at this point.
That's fair.
Throwing around some lower than average numbers, but I'm gonna throw an 8 down here for entertainment.
Well,
like it is for all of the nits that I picked and the holes that I poked. It's a really fun ride.
Yeah.
It keeps the energy up. It keeps you engaged in the mysteries that are being presented to the major characters. The stakes remain high, like they're well-scaled stakes for the whole thing, and so you're just really entertained throughout.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that it moves along. It keeps you engaged because you have a couple of quote unquote slow moments in the movie, but they don't feel like they slow the movie down.
Yeah.
So I gave it a 9, and I think it's really fun. I've rewatched it quite a number of times at this point, because partly I really like history. I think y'all know that. It is definitely history adjacent, but there is a lot of fun tidbits and stuff thrown out there and little factoids and whatnot. I love the moment when Riley gets his moment to know the thing about history.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things where this is quips and interactions, and it's 100% plot relevant. And like I think that was that kind of thing.
Is this what it feels like all the time for you guys?
Yeah,
just say it.
We don't have time for this, Riley.
Yeah.
But small stuff, because it's fun to look at this movie now because it's 18 years past its point. And like you mentioned earlier, some of the things that you do, like technology just would not allow now.
Yeah.
You could get away with it for an hour or a day tops. Whereas, at that point, technology was limited enough that, you could be if you had enough cash, you could be untraceable, right?
Yeah.
So it's entertaining to watch stuff like, when he goes off the Intrepid into the Hudson, and the agent in charge is like, "Do you see him? Do you see him?" And then the lady's like, "Sir, it's the Hudson." Whereas in a modern movie, it would be much more likely you would get some kind of, they're going to pull out the blah 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 scanner. And it's just like, this is so much of a simpler thing, because now suddenly we have to have an underwater fight to justify them escaping. It's just like, dude, the river is full of crap. No one can see anything in this river. All right, just accept it.
Yeah.
So just stuff like that really kind of push it through for me and get it up, a little higher than y'all have it. But 8's are respectable. And like we said earlier in the show, I think we came in with a 7.5.
7.5 on the technical review.
Right. And then the entertainment brings up to an 8.5.
8.3.
8.3.
Yeah.
So that's overall a lot of gains in the entertainment for sure.
One more thing, and this is just kind of a small negative. Whenever they're in the treasure room, and whenever I see these films that have Last Crusade of Indiana Jones, whenever he's in the catacombs and he has the torch,
yeah,
and then all these other people have these torches. Like, guys, everything around you is flammable.
Yeah,
everything is wood, and you have to be really confident. And whenever he lights the thing that lights up the whole room, so you can see everything.
You're not just killing everyone.
Yeah, you have to be real confident that there's no obstructed, air pockets. Nothing has been damaged to where now you're just destroying your treasure. Like there's so many red flags,
risks,
just going up whenever I see characters like that do that. And I'm like, stop! I know you want the money shot, but wait until you have actual electric lights.
Yeah. Well, and I always love Hollywood's handling of torches because they always hold it right in front of their face. And it's like,
just completely destroy their vision.
This is just like taking a flashlight and pointing it right back at your face. But I could see everything. You can't see anything. Hold that thing up. Yeah. It's hot. At the end of the day, it's Hollywood.
Oh, no. I know.
Yeah.
Still, super entertaining movie. I'd watch it again.
Yeah, but yeah, they need the big reveals. They gotta have the ancient contraption has to work one more time. Oh well, so it goes. But I think if no one else has anything,
no, I'm good.
Right. Well, again, really entertaining ride. Obviously, mix of opinions about certain things, but so it goes. And that is all the time we have for this episode. So until next time, I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Joel.
And every spoiler was intended. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, you can support the show for as low as $1 at patreon.com/spoilersintendedpodcast. We also have a Discord server and would love to have more people joining in the conversation. Links are in the description below. Thank you.